Steve Witkoff is saying that Trump directed him to get the Gaza ceasefire to the next phase. The same man who had a very unfriendly conversation with Benjamin Netanyahu and told him that all hell to pay, and that hell includes you, includes Israel, following which Benjamin Netanyahu immediately started taking steps to implement the ceasefire. And even when Israel wanted to have a delay, there was more pressure on them to adhere to the timeline that was dictated by the United States before Donald Trump's inauguration. And that indeed happened. And now he's sending Witkoff to ensure that things are going to continue to the second phase. But he's not only sending Witkoff to ensure things are happening, he's sending Witkoff to Gaza. Steve Witkoff said, I'm actually going to be over to Israel. I'm going to be part of an inspection team at the Netzarim corridor and also at the Philadelphia corridor. And I want to hold and speak about this point. I want to have a pause here and speak about this point. Firstly, there were reports that he might be visiting Gaza. One of the Hamas leaders previously invited him to visit and meet the Palestinian people. And now he is going to Gaza. And this report about him going to Gaza is underestimated, underreported, and also misread. The first reason why is the fact that by visiting Gaza, he will be putting legitimacy to the Palestinian resistance in Gaza. Steve Witkoff doesn't have to go to Gaza. All of this security team that they're sending to Gaza, firstly, it was coordinated with Hamas during the negotiations. Hamas previously said, no one will enter Gaza unless coordinated with us. So with the ceasefire negotiation talks, the American side agreed with the Palestinians to have a third-party presence temporarily during the first phase and then leave, of course, to make sure that Israel withdraws from Gaza and some of the Palestinian vehicles get checked, jointly with a company from Egypt that also has Qatari participation. Gaza, at the end of the day, is controlled by Hamas. Steve Witkoff going there is giving the Palestinian resistance legitimacy. They are the ones who are present there. They are the ones who are responsible for things over the ground, under the ground, security, policing, and everything to do with that. So the people he's going to be seeing there, they're going to be the Palestinian Authority of Gaza, which is led by Hamas. And that's something that he forced Israel to do, by the way. He forced his way there. Because Antony Blinken, when he was in Israel before, he asked to have a visit to the Gaza borders to ensure that aid was going in. And Israel at the time, they refused his request under the excuse of, we can't make sure you know that we can protect you. People are going to be protesting. And now Witkoff is going to be going inside of Gaza, not only in the Netzarim corridor, but also in the Philadelphia corridor. So he's going to be spending several hours inside of Gaza, hands-on, viewing the whole destruction. And that message is more of a message against Israel rather than any threat towards the Palestinian side, by the way. There is no intimidation for the Palestinian side. What they've faced in the past 15 months, this total destruction, this genocide, we're talking about a security team coordinated with Hamas and with the Palestinian side, going to do a job and get out. Steve Witkoff doesn't have to go there. And his excuse to be there, by the way, is not that valid too. An inspection. You don't have to go there to inspect. The people on the ground can go in and inspect at the end of the day. Witkoff is sending a message to Israel that there's a new phase. And he's going there to ensure that Israel goes through the next phases in the ceasefire. And this is resonating with the report of Donald Trump that if things don't go to the next phase, there's going to be problems. Donald Trump said things need to go to the next phase, otherwise there are going to be lots of problems. Who is that message to? The Gazans? They already lost everything, the people of Gaza, in terms of material stuff. They lost their houses, they lost everything they own. Of course, now there's more aid and everything. The things are, getting better in Gaza. But that threat is to Benjamin Netanyahu and to Israel. There's a big shift. Is this visit of Witkoff as well an answer to the offer that they got from Hamas, the invitation to go and visit Gaza too? Musa Abu Marzouk, a senior figure in Hamas, said they're ready to begin a dialogue with the United States directly. And he invited the United States representatives and officials to visit Gaza, to hear from the people, hands-on, directly, what their aspirations are, what they want. Could that be an answer? Steve Witkoff going there to Gaza? And it's not only with Gaza, by the way. Donald Trump is doing certain things in the United States internally that are bothering some people. He is removing security of Pompeo, the previous CIA director, and John Bolton, the previous national security advisor, and a main hawk of the warmongering Bush administration that Donald Trump criticized very much. And although he was close to him and he was a part of his previous administration, now he removed security of John Bolton. And John Bolton had a statement to make in that regard that I wanted to share with you. And then I wanted to share Donald Trump's reaction when it comes to John Bolton.
What's your reaction to Trump revoking your security detail, ending your Secret Service detail?
Well, I've had better days, that's for sure. This is, I think, typical of Trump the man. This is the kind of character or lack thereof who's now president. You know, when President Biden, recognizing the threat against me and several other current and former U.S. government officials, authorized the Secret Service to restore protection, which I had when I was National Security Advisor, I'm sure he probably wasn't the happiest man in the world because of the criticisms that I've made of him on his foreign policy.
That was the beginning response of John Bolton. John Bolton, anyone who knows him, is a massive warmonger, a man with radical views, and he supported the war in Iraq heavily. He wants another war with Iran too. And this is the interesting thing, is that the statement that Donald Trump made when it comes to removing security and protection of John Bolton.
You take a job, you want to do a job. We're not going to have security on people for the rest of their lives. Why should we? I thought he was a very dumb person, but I used him well, because every time people saw me come into a meeting with John Bolton standing behind me, they thought that he'd attack them because he was a warmonger.
Deliberately as well, saying that the man was a warmonger. And these are indications that actually Donald Trump looks like he's going ahead with his plans to end wars. And again, there are things that might appear contradicting. For example, he's having these aggressive statements against Canada, Panama, Greenland. When it comes to Israel, he removed some of these settlers off the sanctions list in the United States. There are some reports about deals he might have in the West Bank, although none of that was declared really from his administration. However, the most important thing is what's happening on the ground. And on the ground, Donald Trump forced Israel to have a ceasefire. He's sending Steve Witkoff to Gaza, a massive message on its own, recognizing the Palestinian resistance, by the way. That's what Steve Witkoff's visit to Gaza is. And also, that same man who applied pressure on Benjamin Netanyahu and is having this aggressive tone with Israel that, again, is being underestimated, underreported, and misread, he is sending him to be the main person when it comes to Iran. Trump is appointing Steve Witkoff to be the main Iran person when it comes to the United States administration. This was reported in the American Conservative. They're calling it a continued shift. This move shows a continued shift in Trump's Iran strategy. And even when it comes to Iran, Donald Trump made several statements that he hopes that things don't escalate to a war with Iran, that I believe we can reach a deal with Iran. And even if we don't reach a deal with Iran, I guess that's okay. Some of his latest statements with Iran. Again, in opposition, contrary to previous assumptions, some of the previous statements that Donald Trump made before he came to power during his campaign. So clearly, now there is a shift when it comes to US foreign policy, and this shift is focusing more on de-escalation from what we can see so far. The fact that he pushed for the ceasefire in Gaza, the fact that he's sending Steve Witkoff, the same man who forced this ceasefire upon Netanyahu, threatening him with hell, not Hamas, sending him to make sure that there's a phase 2, and that there will be lots of problems, Trump saying, if we won't go ahead with phase 2. This reconciliatory tone when it comes to Iran, de-escalation, and the fact that Witkoff is going to be the main person when it comes to Iran, all of these things are de-escalation. How else can anyone really describe them? And if the United States will finally start taking a role of really the peacemaker, Donald Trump declared that he wants to be remembered as the peacemaker. He promised to end all wars. Many people, casted doubt on that, compared them to other statements he made too. But now with these moves, they are very important, because if the United States indeed wants to end these wars, especially in Palestine, in the Levant, in West Asia, de-escalate with other countries too, they can do that, because the United States administration has been the biggest terrorist state administration on earth. Wars everywhere, warmongering, going against people's will, taking down democracies, a bullying approach. These things are very important, and they can indeed de-escalate things. Of course, not to a level where we all of a sudden have all-out solutions and everything. Well, no, that requires a lot of time and effort, not only from the United States administration, but the fact that the US is the biggest supporter of the biggest terror state in West Asia, which is Israel. The fact that they are taking such measures are vital, are very important, because without US support, without the Biden administration supporting Benjamin Netanyahu, continuously giving him the weapons that he wants and the money and the funding, the legitimacy when it comes to the genocide in Gaza, if Joe Biden did not do that, Benjamin Netanyahu couldn't have continued this war and genocide.